The fourth team that we have here in our rankings, I have Bama at 4. You do as well. The 2025 season is interesting. A lot of hope coming out of Tuscaloosa. When you look at Bama, who on with our good partners over at FanDuel are plus 480 to win the SEC, and you look into this 2025 season, why do you have them as the fourth best team in the SEC?
Their FanDuel win total, by the way, is 9.5 wins, which feels awfully high. I don't know if I'm fully ready to commit to them going 10-2, but it is accomplishable. It's plausible with the schedule that they have in front of them. I feel optimistic for this team taking a step forward because as much as I like Jalen Milroe and I loved him as a player, the instincts were brutal at times, and he wasn't really getting the help that he needed from his receiving unit outside of Ryan Williams and also the play calling. I think that Ryan Grubb steps in and Ty Simpson is going to be a nice breath of fresh air. Don't think he takes the world by storm by any means, but I think that he's going to be a little bit more reined in his decision-making, and I think that the play calling, again, is going to set him up for better success. The biggest reasons why, though, Blake, I see a 10-2 Bama team this year, their offensive lines and defensive lines last year were super young and inconsistent. This year, those units are now more experienced, and I think a lot of those guys showed a lot of flashes that typically we get from guys who take jumps in year 2 to year 3, from sophomore year to junior year, or just into an upcoming season. I think that their O-line with Parker Brailsford and Caden Proctor, I think on defense, you have James Smith, and you have a lot of different guys that you can tap into that are going to be really productive and some of the best defensive linemen in the SEC. It is underrated on both sides because there were spurts where they really, really struggled. I think 1 year over this offseason and a change in offensive and defensive philosophy is going to help them reach that potential.
My biggest question for Alabama is very simple. It's not defense or defensive talent. It's not some of the weapons that you have on the outside or even some of the weapons that you have at tight end. Joe, it's Ty Simpson. And I don't know enough about him. I don't know if I know enough about him that in some of these games, like going on the road to Georgia, some of these games that you have, if they are shootouts or even if there's crunch time situations where you got to throw the ball, Joe, I just don't know enough about him. There's something that we know that happens in football every single year, regardless of who your favorite team is. It doesn't matter if you're the greatest team of all time or you're a 10-2 team trying to make the playoff. You're going to be in games where when everything's on the line, can you win it? Now, again, I think Alabama, from a defensive perspective, by far has enough talent for them to do that. I do agree. In year one under Kalen DeBoer and Kane Womack, their defensive coordinator, they were young. Everybody was trying to figure it out. Personnel, culture, everything was being figured out, and they went 9-3. The question becomes, there were some things that I thought Jalen Milroe clearly did bad a season ago. And I hear the take of Ty Simpson is a better fit for Ryan Grubb than what Jalen Milroe it was and is, and I agree with that. However, there were some situations in some games last year that Jalen Milroe did take over and win for you. Ty Simpson's going to have to do that as well. It was not Jalen Milroe's fault for all of your struggles. Joe, there were simple times that they just couldn't line up and run the football. But you do have one of the best wide receivers in the country who returns for a second year. How big of a leap does Ryan Williams make? Can he make? Is there situations where Ty Simpson is smart enough because he's been around the block enough to say, hey, man, you know what? Ryan Williams is out there somewhere. Isaiah Horton is out there somewhere. Bernard is out there somewhere. Are they good enough? That will be – I know Ryan Williams is. As a collective unit, can they be? The season for me is I don't know enough about Ty Simpson. I've seen some fall camp intel stuff. Can he be that guy that they need him to be? Is it finally his time? We'll find out and see. But, Joe, I also look at this offensive line and say you lose Booker, you lose some other pieces, and – like even then last year, you couldn't run the ball. So the last game I saw you against Michigan, it wasn't your best. I think guys like Caden Proctor have got to step it up. I think there's been some times where they've gotten out-physicaled. The bottom line here is this. I do think even if you get average play from them in Alabama at quarterback, Joe, I agree with you. Defensively, they just got enough talent. Guys like Dijon Lee is the freshman. A lot of people think he's going to start. You're a big fan of LT Overton. What does that front seven look like? They got some real dudes there. Again, I think it all falls into me that I can't have them, or I'm not going to say I can't have them. I don't know if Ty Simpson, for an example, can separate themselves and get Bama where they want to go back, like going into Athens and winning those games. Do I think you could beat LSU and all these other teams that are on your schedule? Yes. But, Joe, the question is you have them in the top four, shuffle them however you want. Is Ty Simpson going to be the guy that leads you there?
And also to add a couple more guys on defense, Deontay Lawson is freaking awesome. Tim Keenan is a monster in the middle. And Damani Jackson, as well as Xavier Brown, two extremely underrated corners, two guys that I hyped up a lot early last year when there were questions about how good their secondary was going to be. I think that secondary is going to get a lot better. There's just defensively is where I think I feel the best. Defensively, they were really shaky and they were all over the place. I think that you're going into this upcoming season with a group of guys that have a ton of potential for them to be really, really disruptive, like very disruptive. I think the play calling needs to be a little bit better, but we're not going to see, Blake, them getting smoked by Vandy again by bad decision-making. Smoked's a little aggressive because it was a close loss, but being completely in a blender because they don't know how to defend Vanderbilt. They've had an offseason to prepare for that. They're not going to let that loss happen again. I'd be shocked if they lost to Vanderbilt at home, and I'd be even more shocked if they don't smoke them by 2 to 3 plus scores because they're so pissed off about putting that energy out into them. So I think a lot of their problems that they had last year and their losses that they had last year with a weaker roster overall, their worst games came from just lapses in focus, lapses in intensity, in judgment. If they're more locked in, they're going to be fine. But remember the big talking point, Blake, that we had was turnovers and penalties. I know that's a big ask to improve those things, but that's like a mid-season first-year coach problem that I think can be resolved, not entirely, but at least improved upon in an offseason.
Maybe. There is one thing that scares me defensively, though. So one thing that does scare me defensively is, Joe, I thought they just got out-coached a lot. I can live with you being out-athleted. Like there's not a problem.
Right.
Like I can live with, hey, a guy like Ryan Williams went stupid and they had a better guy on that play. The problem when they had some of these losses were, Joe, they just got pushed around. And then secondly, schematically, they didn't change anything up defensively. So I'm not going to say that they're, completely fixed. Womack's got a lot that he's got to overcome himself too. I mean, you can't keep running man coverage and keep having the same aspect like what happened in Vandy. Run cover two. Do something. Don't just sit there. All of their losses last year came on the road. Every one of them, all 4 of them. Question becomes, can you go on the road? Because you're going to have to win, even if you go 10-2. One of those games you lost last year and you didn't, you floundered down your face. And by the way, Joe, they almost gave up the game to South Carolina there at the end. I mean, there comes a point in time where you would not change things defensively. Lenore Sellers started. It was the second half of that game was Lenore Sellers' come out party.
Yeah.
I mean, so again, we'll see about Alabama. All right.